Colonel, I've infiltrated the storage facility. There's a guard near the target, but I don't have any weapons.
Snake.
Colonel, I'm not Snake.
No, throw a snake at the guard.
I don't have a snake.
Don't worry, I packed one in your bag before the mission.
Say what you want about Kojima, but you can't say he doesn't have interesting ideas. And from a gameplay perspective, his games are packed to the brim with detail, and there are tons of mechanics and techniques that can be easily overlooked. So in preparation for the release of Metal Gear Solid Delta, I decided to go back to the first 3 Metal Gear Solid games and tease out some of their most obscure mechanics. This video will go over mechanics from the first game, and I'll be releasing videos for the next 2 games over the next couple weeks. Now just to be clear, my goal for this video is to introduce mechanics that I found to be fairly unknown, as someone who's been playing these games for nearly 2 decades. In the case of the first game, however, it seems I was woefully unaware of some things that were pretty obvious to other people. But in any case, I found out some things that I thought were really cool, and surely there are other people like me who didn't know about them as well. With all that said, we can get started. These are my top 5 potentially obvious game mechanics from Metal Gear Solid that I somehow didn't know about.
Surveillance camera?
The watchful eye of the security camera in Metal Gear Solid 1 is an undefeatable force. Or is it? Later games had first-person shooting capabilities and would let you shoot these cameras down, but twin stakes notwithstanding, this isn't possible in MGS1. Until you have the Stinger missile launcher. Cameras hate to see the Stinger. They do respawn if you go through enough areas, unfortunately, but in some cases, they'll still be gone when you backtrack. You can also destroy them by cooking grenades or planting C4, which you obviously have access to earlier, though using grenades can be tricky, and C4 won't work for all cameras. It should also be noted that, counterintuitively, the sniper rifle will not destroy cameras. So this one's probably pretty obvious, but it took me many playthroughs to realize that you could actually run and shoot your gun at the same time. Normally, when you hold down the fire button, you're locked in place, but if you hold down the crouch button at the same time, you can move around freely and blast all your enemies, which can be pretty useful in some scenarios. This applies to Metal Gear Solid 2 as well, and of course, the third game lets you do this by default. So Metal Gear Solid 1 can be surprisingly difficult at times. My thumb is forever scarred from the torture sequence. But one particular sequence that surprised me with its difficulty was climbing the communications tower. These soldiers can really tear through your health bar, but I happen to know their one weakness: stun grenades. You can hold 18 of these things by the time you get to the tower, but you can get through fairly unscathed with 10 to 12. Just toss one every couple of flights and you should stun everybody in the tower, with a few exceptions depending on your timing. I'm told this isn't as effective in the Twin Snakes, though I haven't tested it myself. If you need help finding more stun grenades, here's all the places I found them. This one here required blowing up a wall in the northwest corner, and these ones will respawn after some time passes. Psycho Mantis is an iconic boss fight that made a huge impression on the gaming audience and the industry in general, and it perfectly exemplifies Kojima's fascinations and his attention to detail. This is one that I normally have trouble with, the latter half in particular, when he goes invisible and starts throwing energy waves at you. But there are a couple ways to pin him down. If you press the first-person view button during this fight, you'll actually see from Psycho Mantis' perspective, allowing you to get a pretty good fix on his position. But this can be a little difficult to figure out sometimes when you're under the gun, so there is another, admittedly less novel approach. If you put on the thermal goggles, invisible or not, Psycho Mantis will stick out like a sore thumb, and you can dispatch him much easier. This last one is actually pretty cool, but also a little disappointing. I've always been someone who's written off VR missions. I mean, they pretty much stopped doing them after the second game. But regardless, I dove into them to see what I could find, and it turns out that in MGS1's VR missions, you can actually play as Gray Fox. Yeah, really. He's fully kitted out, he's got a jump, a standard attack, a dashing strike, he can grab guards and slice their throat, and he can go invisible or create a damaging energy sphere around him at the cost of his health. It's actually pretty awesome to play as him, but there's a couple problems. For one, you've got to put in a lot of legwork to unlock him. In Metal Gear Solid VR missions, you have to complete 85% of all the missions to unlock him, which took me several hours, and I didn't find the other VR missions particularly interesting. And I think the requirements for Metal Gear Solid Integral are even stricter. What makes this worse is that Gray Fox has a total of 3 missions, and all 3 of them take place on this one stage, so it's hard to see this as much more than a surprisingly fleshed out novelty. Honestly, it feels like it's one step removed from cut content. Metal Gear Solid 1 is not as mechanically complex as future games, but there's still plenty that I left out, so feel free to share your secret knowledge in the comments. For the next 2 games, I'll be sharing mechanics that I think will actually be a little more obscure and less widely known. But while you're here, maybe toss me a like, a subscribe. You could even check out my Patreon page or become a channel member if you want to support me directly. And if you like this video, share it with a friend. It really makes a difference for me. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.